IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hi and welcome to Know Your Kanoon. This is Amber from Amber Rana Ventures, and we are back again another episode with Green and Spiegel. And today I have someone very interesting, and he's not appearing in his professional capacity today on the show. Over the period of time, I've interacted with him a lot, and we've had a great relationship as far as I would say in terms of I would say in terms of going outside our professional boundaries to have that casual relationship. But I work with him very extensively. I give him all the trouble. So I have Mr. Stephen Doherty with me. He's a dear friend. And Stephen, thank you so much for being here. I will not introduce him. I like, Stephen to introduce himself again because he's a very talented man or guy, I would say. And there's a whole of experience behind it. So Stephen, please introduce yourself.
Well, Amber, first off, thank you so much for having me here. I really, really appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show. This is my first ever podcast, so bear with me. If you can't understand me because I'm speaking too fast or you can't understand this thick Irish accent, just let me know and I'll try to speak a little bit clearer. But yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So for me, to give myself a quick, brief introduction, I am the marketing and communications manager for Green and Spiegel. It's an immigration law firm in Toronto, Ontario. We have offices also in the US, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Providence, Rhode Island, and then some Colorado too. So I'm one of the two full-time employees focused on marketing and communications. And I'm responsible for all the activities in the firm. I joined about 2 years ago in November, and yeah, haven't looked back since. It's been an awesome journey so far.
No, but thank you so much for your brief intro, and we don't have a problem with the Irish accent. In fact, that's what I was telling you, that once we meet up, there's going to be some Guinness on the bar for sure. Anyways, guys, he has been the instrumental key for getting all these wonderful guests, coordinating with our team, coordinating with everyone at IVM, and always a pleasure to work with him. And finally, he's here. So, Stephen, let's start with your journey. I want to start with how and where and when did you migrate from Ireland? And could you just talk about your experience as an immigrant? Let's cut to the chase. I want to know what made you decide that Canada is an ultimate place for immigration, and why not Guinness and Scotch and other beautiful things in Ireland?
Well, actually, it's a funny story. I was lucky enough to study in Ryerson, which is a university in downtown Toronto, back in 2016 for an international exchange semester. So thankfully, I got accepted. I put in the application. It was first on the list. And when I got here in the summertime. So I knew the winters were a little bit harsh, but right then and there, I had no kind of idea what they'd be like. So I get off the plane, I see the place. I've never been to Canada before, and immediately I fall in love with the city. The place is beautiful, the people are friendly, and the more time I spent there, the more I fell in love with it. Like what I got to say was that when I first went to the university, even, for me, it kind of felt like something out of a movie because I just wasn't really expecting to see all these awesome facilities, all these really lovely buildings. So, it kind of felt, I was like, whoa, where am I? This place is awesome. So that was the thing that initially attracted me was when I was studying here. I spent about 4 months learning the culture, learning all about the people, the food. And then after I did a little bit of studying here, I had to make my way back to Ireland. Went back, finished my studies in Ireland, got my degree in marketing. I wanted to get a couple of years experience under my belt before I moved over. But I always knew I wanted to come back. So what I did was I got a few years, maybe I think it was 3 years experience in my marketing role back home. I worked in this recruitment agency as the marketing specialist for the firm. And then, what I decided to do was to start looking at the best possible ways to emigrate to Canada. For me, it might be a little bit different for different people in the audience, is depending on the immigration pathways that are available for each particular person. But for me, I had the International Experience Canada. I had a working holiday visa, so I could go over for 2 years and see what it was all about. You know, my time over there when I was a student was completely different than when I moved over there in a kind of more professional capacity. I was definitely a lot younger back in 2016 when I was kind of, you know, student life, enjoying it a little bit. And when I came over the second time, it was kind of more to work. It was kind of more to live. So I had a different approach. I was a little bit older. I was a little bit smarter. So my experience was definitely a lot more fulfilling, but it just took a while to kind of get set up because, you know, when you start a new life in a country, it's in a new country, it's both exciting and challenging. But, you know, many newcomers like myself can leave behind some of their support systems, their families, their friends, their colleagues when they move away, which means sometimes they may not have you know, anyone that they can really rely on to help them start off the new life with success. So, you know, you really need to do a lot of planning to figure out, you know, the best possible ways to kind of set yourself up to be successful in another country. So that's what I did. I put a lot of kind of work in pre-arrival, you know, figuring out how to get a SIN number, you know, figuring out what all was about with the healthcare, how I can even convert my Irish driver's license to a Canadian one, how I'm going to get a Canadian number, figuring out all this sort of stuff before I even got set up over here in Toronto. So that's pretty much how I managed to get over here. What happened after that, after I landed, was that I wanted to basically start figuring out how I can get a job immediately. So that was a difficult process because, you know, coming straight over here without any Canadian work experience, as they say, can be quite a difficult task, because it is a thing where you can kind of get a little bit of rejection at the start, because they might say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, your work experience is not aligned with Canadian work experience," but it's just a hurdle. You know, all you have to do is persevere and kind of keep going through, and you'll definitely find one. But, you know, planning for a job, all that sort of stuff, it takes a lot of time, a lot of prep. You got to be patient and you got to be willing to persevere.
No, wonderful. And that knowing this. By the way, I would like to reiterate on the show that he's right. Canadians are friendly, but the Irish are the most friendly people that I've ever met in my travel ventures, or professionally and otherwise. And you can always break a drink with them anywhere, and everybody's in a jovial mood. So Stephen, that's about how you moved. Okay, so let's just talk. Of course, being an immigrant and shifting and the decision making, you've come from a marketing background. Now, so many people, and I know so many into people from, marketing, advertisement, and, PR agencies, etc., who, because there is no, for you or somebody from this stream, the world is your workplace. I would say it's not restricted to any such single profession as such, that it to be restricted to a particular country to, practice this or to explore opportunities. How easy was it to explore something like this, and what can you tell the audience about it?
Well, you're right in the sense that, like, you can specialize in specific things as well, but it really depends. You got to show that your value, you got to show your worth. When you get here, you can maybe specialize, you can see if there's any courses you can do. Also networking is super important over here. Just being able to build that professional and personal network really goes a long way. So that's one of the things that I'd highly recommend doing. Even for someone like me, I felt a little bit uncomfortable doing the networking, but it's something that really is one of those essential things that you really need to do. You put the effort in, and it's like a lot of things where you get out of it as much as you put into it. So I'd highly recommend looking into some networking, joining all these professional groups, personal groups, even the likes on Facebook. They go so long.
Right. As a potential immigrant, because most of the people who look forward to moving to Canada, they forget that, at least in professional fields, I can talk about as a lawyer, I can talk about as a professional, people feel that, the work they've done in their home country, it would not make it easier in Canada, because I think they're looking at a wholesome kind of a personality, just not at how good you are at your work, because I mean, your home domain somewhere in a professional field might not just meet the requirement that you need there. So I guess you're pretty much correct that networking does help to an extent. But what would you suggest to a potential immigrant who's scouting for an opportunity and a life in Canada? What are some of the parameters that you think at the back of your head would matter the most as far as the immigration process is concerned? You know, you must have come through express entry, and of course, you've done your studies from here, so you had those additional points. But I'm sure you've done your due diligence on that as well when you applied. But what is the utmost important thing you felt as a potential immigrant, you know, and moving from Ireland, completely different cultural background, and moving to Canada, of course, Canada being accepting and very relaxed, but some important things, let's say, from a personal perspective, from a professional perspective, and then from an immigration perspective that you can highlight for our audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of different things. Like in terms of the working culture, even, like the Canadian work environments, they do really vary depending on the employer, the type of job. But there are basic business etiquette rules that are common to most Canadian workplaces. Like Canadian workplace culture, they expect you to be good at speaking, listening, socializing with other people, to know the etiquette of working, harmoniously with co-workers, colleagues, and supervisors. So I actually, there's a good book that I recommend. It's called "You're Hired, Now What?" It's by Linda Goldstein, and Linda basically outlines many of the general expectations of the Canadian workplace. So it's an interesting read. I'd kind of highly recommend, having that to kind of get a good idea of what the working culture is like here in Canada. Again, it does vary, but it's a good book to kind of give you a good idea of all that sort of stuff. And then, from a personal perspective, like it's really good idea to start building up a personal network. As I said, it's kind of difficult now because of COVID, makes things super tricky. It's pretty difficult to go out and, build up a network. There's no events kind of going on anymore. They're all virtual, right? So it's a little bit different, but when you can, things are getting better now. Everything is looking up here in Toronto and in Canada. Thank God we're getting in the right direction. The cases are coming down. So, people are looking forward to kind of getting out and kind of going out and doing all that sort of stuff. As I said, people are super friendly here, and kind of having that support network of friends and people like that goes a long way to kind of making sure that you're a lot more comfortable here in the city.
Absolutely, and I'm sure from a Asian perspective, from an Indian perspective, guys, you really have to be open to adapt, because I think each of the countries have a different. I believe the United Kingdom has a different work culture altogether. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've worked with Germans, I've worked with Japanese, I don't know, I've worked with so many people. But I feel you have to adapt to the working system. And, I'm sure Ireland would have a different system altogether. Though in my, on a funny note, I used to feel that Ireland would have the most amazing work culture. But after 3, you would be just having a great time. And for the longest time, I argued with family at work that, I want to be in Ireland for the rest of my life. But again, coming back seriously to the point of knowing the place better, doing your research on what you are trying to target, how and what you need to do is something of utmost importance. Okay, Stephen, now I'll come to the immigration part of things, right? For someone, someone who's completely new, how easy is the immigration system in terms of assisting you, getting your SIN number, getting your permanent residency, applying for other benefits, etc.? Because as a student, I'm sure you would have started to read about them, right? What would you suggest to someone who comes in that how would you narrate the system? How easy is it to get all of these facilities by the Canadian government at your disposal, and how easy was it for you, and what do you recommend?
It is easy if you know what to do. And I suppose that's the thing. It's a lot of kind of pre-arrival research that you need to do. So you need to understand what, you need to get, what the requirements are, how you go about and get them. Things have changed a little bit now again due to COVID, but getting a SIN number, getting your OHIP, they are quite simple. They're simple processes. It's just a tricky kind of thing because sometimes when you're new to a new country, you're just not really sure about what requirements you need. Are you covered for the first 3 months with healthcare? all this sort of stuff. So it's all about that research. So what I did was, I created a checklist. I reached out to a few different, like newcomer networking groups, which have all these kind of guides and guidelines. Another great resource actually is arrivein.ca. They help out a lot of newcomers, and I'd highly recommend them. They do a lot of great webinars. They kind of get people acclimatized of what it's like to work in Canada. They have all different sections. So, when I used that was super helpful. It kind of gave me the correct steps in order for me to get set up correctly in Toronto.
All right, that's pretty much it in terms of knowing the immigration process. Okay, tell me, Stephen. Now let's start. Let's make it fun. Let's compare between two different countries. If I have to compare Ireland and Canada, because Indians compare Canada and they say, "Why should I move to Canada? Every other person is moving to Canada." Now we have someone from Ireland, so I want to know, if I compare between Ireland and Canada, what would you have to say?
Well, that's a great question. It's a great question. Look, I love Ireland. Don't get me wrong. It's my home country. But saying that, I suppose one of my regrets about Canada and moving to Canada, I guess, is not moving here sooner. For me, it's really kind of helped me kind of push myself out of my comfort zone. And I really, looking back now, I really wouldn't have seen myself here and all that I'm achieving. And it's really something that has made me kind of grow as a person, is just kind of getting out of the comfort zone and kind of exploring and pushing yourself into these new opportunities. And I suppose that Canada is just full of opportunities. It's just there. And, if you look for them and you want them and you have that attitude, you have that aspiration to go and get it, you can achieve it. And I suppose that's what I really kind of like about Canada, is that it has so many opportunities for you to kind of get to the next level.
So you're saying basically, from a North American perspective, being in the hemisphere really opens up a lot of things where you would want that constant rise, of course. Right?
Exactly.
But that kind of adds up to the point that when you look at North America, of course, NAFTA treaties, everything in place, the market is more opening up. But Stephen, given a choice, if today someone asks me where would you be most comfortable, because now you've worked in Canada as well, you've studied here, you've known this. As an immigrant, do you feel quite blended in? Do you feel quite inclusive? Or do you feel that, maybe it makes a difference? Because again, you're coming from a European country where, culture is okay, similar. The way of life is more so similar, not exactly similar. What would you have to say about that? Because, people say, oh, it's a complete change of life for me when I move from, let's say, China, Brazil, Asia, South America, anywhere, for that matter of fact, barring Europe and not even the traditional European countries, I would say, such as Germany, France, etc. But traditionally an English country you've been from. So what would you feel about that? What can you tell our audience about that? Because people do relate to all of these things.
Yeah, well, I suppose even the city I'm in right now is in Toronto, and it is the most multicultural city in the world. So like that in itself kind of speaks in volumes of, what it's like to come here, because there's such a diversity. There's over 250 ethnicities and over 170 languages, I believe, that are represented in the Toronto region. So, that's what I really loved as well about it, was the diversity of the people, the ideas. And that's what also kind of really attracted me to the city, was that although there are all these different, backgrounds and all this sort of awesome stuff, you don't really feel like you're away from home, because there's always a little bit of home here.
Of course. And let me tell you guys, there's always a bit of Irish culture everywhere around the world that I've seen it. So I'm sure he does not miss home. You'll always find a pub or a bar around the corner. Right.
Yeah. So, well, I don't miss the weather though. That's the only thing as well about Ireland, is the rain. Christmas Day it'll be raining, and then June 1st it'll also be raining. It's the one season the whole way through. What I love about the city as well, and Canada in general, is that you get all 4 seasons. So it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
And coming from that, I'll tell you what, like most of the Indians, you would know in Toronto, the amount of Indians, maybe if it's 2% of the whole Canadian population or 3%, they're huge. right? And Toronto is hounded by generations and generations of all these immigrants around the world. And I'll talk about Indians and Chinese and then Irish, and then, everyone's been there. But the only problem that I feel that comes in when people immigrate is that they expect too much from a country where they're immigrating to without doing their due diligence and the hard work. Because you're going there, and especially the Asian community, when you're moving from here, the working culture in India is you're working 12, 14 hours, and Stephen would have seen that I replied to him any time of the day. Of course, that's been because I'm self-employed and I do have my own law firm, etc. But even if I was working with an organization, we have an average working day of maybe 12 odd hours, and then when you expect to move somewhere in Canada where, of course, I mean, you can have working hours anywhere, which are too much, but it's structured, it's more organized, there's a difference, but you cannot expect those skills which you have harnessed here to be of some use there eventually like this. It has to be calibrated. So my advice to at least people who look forward to this is that please don't set your expectations to a level where it does not even meet your own bars or standards that are there, right? So Stephen, coming to another segment, and the most important segment is the marketing side of things, and what actually I want to know your journey to this, because since now I work with you, I understand your wavelength, your professionalism, your dedication to this whole thing. How did this come about to be, your crusade, as I would say that? How did you choose it to be your profession?
Well, I was always passionate about marketing all the way through since I was a little kid. I was always fascinated by advertisements on the TVs, and that kind of really sparked my interest, even in psychology and all that sort of stuff. So I knew I really wanted to study marketing. Once I finished my university degree, I wanted to get a job straight away. So I worked at a startup. So it was on the agency side, and the startup was awesome. I really, really liked it. It was great experience. We kind of, it was my first time working in a startup, obviously, as well. So that kind of, I suppose, drive that you really need to kind of get that startup to the next level as well is something that I take value out of, because you have to really learn to work hard. Everyone is their own boss in these startups as well. It's a little bit different. But after a while, after about a year, I wanted to get into more of a professional services type of role. It was a little bit of a switch for sure, but I just thought, I wanted a little bit more structure. And then I also wanted to have a little bit more responsibility over kind of marketing in general. So I took a little bit of a different direction, looked at some professional services. In the recruitment agency I said I used to work with, I was responsible for the marketing activities there too. So, I had that kind of that experience when I came over to Canada to work in a professional services organization. And what really kind of helped, I suppose, was, some of the previous experience, which was the likes of, managing all the marketing and communications, that including brand management, website content development, social media, advertising, public relations. So the list kind of goes on, but it's one of those things where you have to work smart and not as hard. So like what I mean by that is that, since the teams are being quite small that I've worked with, you have to really be clever about your time and how you kind of manage your time and set up these different templates, set up these different brand guidelines, which enables you to quickly put out some good quality work without sacrificing too much of your time. And that's what I've been trying to really work on over the last couple of months, last couple of years, was really kind of hone in on how I can be a little bit more agile with my day-to-day activities.
Absolutely. And since, now I'll bring the part of it, people feel PR marketing and, this advertising is around the creative side of things, but you're working with a professional law firm, you're dealing with lawyers, and it's a altogether different working environment. And, I believe so, because a law firm is a traditional law firm where everybody is very serious about the stuff they're doing, and no one has an inkling or a knowledge, I would say, of how the marketing world works, or what is it all about. So how easy was that for you to transform from? Because when you're working as, first, you're an immigrant, number two, you've come to a new country, you're working at a big time law firm as one of the marketing guys handling this. and then also trying to explain things to people. So I want you to narrate that experience as well for people that because it's generally the notion here in India is that PR marketing advertising guys have a bright future only in the creative field, but I see you doing very well with Green and Spiegel. So something on that.
Yeah, so I suppose the agency side and the client side are completely different kind of sides of marketing. Yeah, so the client side definitely has its opportunities too, because you can be responsible for the marketing activities. You can have that guidance and that big picture thoughts of how things are going to work. Then you can work with the agencies to bring that together. Like for me, as you said, like coming into a law firm which may not traditionally have too much knowledge in different types of marketing, thankfully,
Right.
they've been super receptive to some of my ideas, some of the attitudes, some of the the ideas that we were bringing into the firm. Thankfully, the I suppose the culture over here, people are really open to different ideas because you're showing that you want to improve, you want to make things better for the firm, and you're just kind of bringing these ideas to the surface. So that's what I've been doing. I've been taking my time, been thinking about things, and if it's a good opportunity, I'm not afraid to say it because look, it could work out in the end, and that's the thing. We're all on the same team, and I suppose over here it's having that collaborative environment where you're not afraid to voice your opinion or to bring some ideas to the table, because that really kind of makes a difference sometimes.
No, absolutely. And, that is why I posted this question. And, most of the people ask this. And frankly, you would have understood that I know zilch about marketing and I don't understand it. But I do try to put my hand at technology and marketing. But, working in a law firm, of course, a different experience altogether. And working in Canada with all of this again. So, Stephen, we'll come to the last bit of this. As an immigrant, I would like you to summarize and I want to erase this misconception that people have that it's easier for people to move from other countries than it is from India. I want you to highlight that procedure, that the journey is the same. It's just a misconception. You have to know how to play your cards, how to work, and probably move forward. So I would request you to comment on that because see, you've done your journey, you've studied there, you've gone through the process, you worked hard, and you're working with a top-notch law firm. So just for our audience, before we close this, I want you to please highlight this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I suppose what I said earlier was, my biggest regret is not moving over here sooner. And, I stand to that. I would encourage all your listeners to don't sit around and wait for an opportunity to land on your lap. You have to go out. You have to find it. Canada is open for business. This place is full of opportunities. Once you have the right attitude, do your homework, come over here, and you can make an awesome life for yourself. I've done it. Anyone else can do it.
Yep. And I would want to ask from you, what do you think as a podcaster, what opportunities do you feel that we can have? My whole team at IBM.
Tons. I'm looking forward to doing some of these maybe in person. That in itself is going to be some exciting ones, and then maybe we can venture out in a few different things. I know you mentioned some Guinness at the start, so maybe we can do a Guinness podcast or a drink podcast. Would be good for me.
And the idea here is that the team at IBM loves these new concepts, and I feel and they're wonderful people. So I feel that we need to do a podcast where we have about 8-10 glasses or pints of Guinness, and we taste all of them. And after each round, we comment on how beautiful it is every time we go through it. So I don't know. Maybe let's take your advice on what do you prefer? What does Stephen prefer in his personal capacity? Which form would you suggest to people?
I think video. That what you said there would work perfect. I think that's the best way to go about it. Everything visual these days as well. And as you said yourself, having that ability to do things in person now is something that you need to take advantage of, and don't take it for granted. We've been on Skype, we've been on Zoom for so long now. We're kind of getting past that, and having these in-person events are going to really make a difference again going forward.
No, and what type of Guinness do you recommend to the audience?
I like just a normal Guinness straight from the draft. If you can't get a draft, just a normal black can of Guinness. Highly recommend it. Make sure you just let it settle and don't just drink it straight away. Wait for the head to come up and all the black to settle, and then boom, perfect pint.
So why I asked you on this was, I have an experience. We were traveling. I was in Australia, and my go-to drink in the evening would be the happy hour, and I would just straight away go and tell them I need my steak and my Guinness, and I would just gobble them down because they tasted very nice, and then it would hit me after 2 pints down, and I would not know how the world was. So guys, drink your Guinness responsibly. Do not drink like me. Do not gulp them down. He's telling you the right things to do. And thank you so much, Stephen. Wonderful here. And we'll be doing this podcast in Canada where we'll be tasting and doing a special segment for you guys on this. Thank you so much. We've had super fun, Stephen. And we've kept it short this time because we have to get you longer with more content.
Absolutely, Amber. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to having a few frosty ones in person when I see you.
Yes, absolutely. And it's such a pleasure working with you. He's such a professional person, guys. And it's been an absolute pleasure interacting with him and going about our marketing thing that we are doing in front of you or offshore. But thank you so much, Stephen. Wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure as always. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus was joined by Irfan Pabani, who is an old friend of his. They talk about the rich flavors of Indian food and Parsi food specifically. He was also joined by author and historian William Dalrymple. They discuss literature, history, and the culture of the Indian subcontinent. And let me give you a few quick things to check out. Chuck, aka Deepak Gopal Krishnan of Simplified and the Origin of Things fame, has Rohan Joshi, formerly of AIB, on his show. Also on this round is on me. Gautam Purohit of Thakur's Bhojnalaya was on. On the note, Maruk Inayat talks about the cabinet reshuffle. And do check out Global Victoria Tech Talks. We talk about the booming gaming and edutech industries in Australia. Do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up what's going on the network. And I'd like to finally thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Ciet, and Global Victoria. Thank you so much for making this possible.
What are some of the radical changes that are now shaping our workspace? With physical distancing and heightened safety protocols being the norm, will technology finally make its large-scale entry to the workspace? Will design as we know it change for the long term? Is it possible for the Indian commercial real estate space to adopt a 360-degree approach to sustainability? Join our hosts at the Future of Space podcast by RMZ as we deliberate with industry leaders, analysts, and bright young minds on the way forward for the workspace given the new COVID normal. Tune in to the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts